Hi, I'm Todd Rheingold, the hopeful aspirant. Welcome to another installment of I Got a Testimony. Today I have with me my friend Doriel Larrier. Doriel and I went to college together. I'm really excited to have her on the show, and she's going to start out and give you her testimony. Doriel, how you doing today?
Greetings, as I say to all of my viewers, Dumela, Sawubona, Sakpase, Namaste, Upshin, Dubrota, Assalamu alaikum, Buenos dias, Bonjour. How are you? Thank you so much, Todd, for
Sure.
inviting me to your show. I am extremely excited that we can connect through digital media uh, as a way to sort of pull us back together when we've actually been far apart for a long time. The hardest period of my life was August of 2019.
Okay.
A regular day, one would think, and I had the check in my hand to send my son off to college. I was about to put it in the mail. And as I held it in my hand, I got a text message from the person who uh, owned the apartment that I lived in. And the text message said something to the effect of, and I had been in that place for basically 18 years. And the person said, well, it's been decided by the owners of the building, um, that only owners needed to live in the apartment and not people who sublet. And I was a subletter at that moment. And so they said, well, you have like 3 months to vacate the premises, to vacate the apartment. I had been in that place for 18 years. And I literally had to say, I'm, I, all of my savings is in part in this check right here. Do I really have to make a decision whether or not my son is going to start college or I'm going to have a place to live? The testimony is I said, my son is going to school.
Amen.
We'll figure the other part out. I literally emptied my entire account in August. I was supposed to vacate August, September. So it was July, like the end of July. So August, September, October. I told the people who own the building, I said, I cannot do that. I literally have just sent the check off. I don't have any other, quote unquote, I don't have a trust fund. I didn't come from that, neck of the woods. What can we do? I went into that prayer closet. What's going to happen? I emptied my account again. I want to say the next day, but within maybe 48 hours, people started saying, hey, here's something that's available. Here's something that's available. But it was twice the amount of money that I had been paying for almost 2 decades. I wasn't even aware of what the market looked like outside of where I lived. And so my back was not even against the wall. My back was the wall. I was slumped to the floor. That was all of the fall. January, someone had said, hey, Doriel, we see you going live. We see you putting yourself out there. We see you being the voice when someone probably said, I don't think you really have anything to say. And people started noticing me. Again, I stood my ground and I kept talking. I kept saying what's on my mind and I kept talking, not about my issue, but I kept talking about things were happening in the community and things were happening to underrepresented communities. One phone call after another, after another. The amount of money that I sent off to send my son to school was not only replaced, but was doubled in a period of 6 months. people started saying, hey, help me do this. Hey, help me do that. Hey, how much do you charge for this? Hey, how much can you do this for me? Sure.
So you didn't even actively solicit this. It found you.
God opened the doors. January, I started going through the contract period of, one place and then another place. February, we continued. Everybody knows what happened in March. What happened in March didn't just hit the US, but it hit me personally. So I actually contracted it. I contracted the
That's
virus.
right. That's right.
And at the time that I thought it was the flu, I called my doctor, told her my symptoms, and she said, no, Doriel, you actually have the virus. There is no easy about this, the quick and dirty. I was on the phone. I actually have it on my Facebook page because I was on the phone with the physician as they were telling me, and on my Facebook Live. So people, if you research it, you can see the video. The doctor was saying, we cannot take you. You cannot come in for testing. It was only the first week here in Brooklyn where they had just opened up 2 centers in the borough of Brooklyn, the 4th largest city in America, on a Wednesday. By Friday, by the Saturday when I called to go in, they said, we cannot take you. I then said, let me then send my children away so I could deal with this by myself. My doctor said, no, your children have to stay with you because they were already exposed. Nobody really knew what to do, how to respond, what have you. I'm still working through why God decided that I should still be here. Because all around me, people that I knew, people, friends of family, extended family members, colleagues, whatever, are not here. I not only got it, I have 2 sons. One of my sons, my youngest son, who I had just sent to college and who had just come home for break, he contracted it as well. The feeling is someone is sitting on your chest. Someone who weighs like 3 times the amount as you do. It feels like someone slit open the skin in the front and the skin in the back around your neck and slid in a wooden board and then sealed you back up. So every movement that you make feels like you were in a confined space and now you're trying to break free. Everything hurt. You couldn't breathe. You feel like you're drowning in fluid. And the moments during a lot of nights, I just waited for one of my sons to walk past the bedroom and hopefully they would see my finger raised because I could not speak. No smell, no taste, couldn't eat. Every moment felt like I was 500, 600 pounds, dizzy all the time. It was horrendous. I would not wish it on anyone. And after about 2-3 weeks, came out of it. But let me tell you what happened during that. The same way I pushed the live button prior to this, and that's my hashtag. If you look up push the live button, you will see me all over it. I kept telling people what I was going through. I kept getting on live stream and telling people the day by day, I call them the Rona update. And people were like, wait, Doriel, you have it? Like, you eat well. And I was just, okay, but it is no respecter of persons. Every single person got it, whether you had money, you don't have money, you live in Dix Hills, you live in Brownsville, it doesn't matter. This is how God works. People that we went to college with, who I haven't seen in 20-something years, messaged me and they said, Doriel, let me make you some berry drink or like but it was like the thing that you should take, and shipped it in a glass bottle overnight from like Maine. Another one of my classmates, they were like, Doriel, what can we do? What can we do? And I was like, well, there's a vitamin C thing that I take, but I've run out and I can't. The next day, it was overnighted to my door. People from around my community literally just can't, and they were like, oh, can someone come downstairs? I said, I'm trying to explain to you, we've been quarantined. We can't even leave the apartment. people dropping groceries, dropping juice, dropping fruits, dropping, herbs and stuff that they knew were going to support. That was God. While I was going through this, the bank and the realtor said, oh, we know that everybody else is out of work. You're probably not going to make your commitment on the down payment and on the closing costs. I said, watch me. I not only had enough money, remember, I emptied my account. I was able to put down the down payment and also get to closing during this entire situation and purchase my first home. That was only God.
I love it. It's amazing testimony. How did that little girl from Brooklyn who had a dream, how did she go from that place to even college, just that little span of time?
Everyone is told to set goals. Everyone is told to dream big. And when I was younger, I actually wanted to be a physician. I wanted to be a doctor. My mother, God bless her, who's still with us, she had some glaucoma. She had glaucoma. I said, oh, like all young children, oh, I want to be a physician. I want to be a doctor. That's one of the big three that, people are pushed to focus on. And so as I started to look into what that could possibly mean and then go through school and realize that you have to do all this studying of science, which at that moment wasn't necessarily the thing that I was strong at. I said, well, I guess that's not what I'm going to be. And so as I approached college, my mother said to me, well, why don't you be a teacher? So I chose education, but in choosing education not only chose me, but I wound up literally coming back full circle to my mission and vision, all pun intended, of serving people who wanted to feel better and live a better life. I teach teachers and I teach students, and now I'm also teaching families who want to help their children, because since March, we've all been home. So there are lots of things as a female, as a woman of African ancestry, that I will plant into children, to colleagues, to families, to communities that may not necessarily be part of the script, let's say. They're not a part of the canon of information, but for not just my cultural community, my cultural community, nonetheless, all people should have some other things that are not in the book in order to make these leaps and gaps so that we're not a disconnected society.
I had a question about that. So you're talking about that within the education periphery, though. When you say that you're there to help the children and the families navigate, you mean in terms of like the kids going to college and the parents having that support, or the kids having the support? Or are you talking in general? Are you like a coach, like a life coach, or are you coming at this more from an educational thing?
The first thing I want to say is, if the shoe fits, I recognize that the history books are written differently depending on what part of the Mason-Dixon line you are on. We'll leave that right there. Okay. So I do a lot to close the gap, to fill in the blanks, to fill in the information that really should be there, and it's not. Now, of course, I will say, here's the information that you're taught and that you need to put on the paper to show mastery. Here's the other information that you may not necessarily put on the test, but if you want to continue in this society and be able to treat people properly, there's some other information you need to know.
Doriel, I was always impressed with her in college, because even when she was an undergrad, she wasn't just focused on her grades and her career. She was very involved in the college community itself and even the community at large. So she was involved with Unity House, which is the African American community, predominantly a West Indian community, but also New London itself. I was always impressed because, you did the singing, you were socially active, and planning things. Like you didn't just show up to parties, you were part of planning it. And I remember the dance thing that you did with, I still remember her name, Shantae.
For those of you who do not know, I was a part of an a cappella singing group. And let me say for the record, I was the third woman of color in 60 years
Ooh.
of at that time. Yes, I did make it. And to those people who are more familiar with like a fraternity or sorority, we did not have any of those at the time on our campus. And so whatever it was, if it was an art group, if it was a musical group, if it was athletics, that really became your sisterhood or your brotherhood. And so the Swifts that was my, yes. But I also was a part of the gospel choir or the gospel chorus at that time.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you went to Erasmus High School in Brooklyn.
Erasmus Hall, E Hall, yes. Uh-huh.
And what I remember too is even as an undergrad, you acted as a conduit from that school to Connecticut College. A lot of the students you coordinated, like you let them know, hey, Connecticut College is a great experience for me. I'm really enjoying myself. And you helped others to facilitate that matriculation into Connecticut College. Am I right about that?
Sure. I'm from a very strong Baptist community. We make one step with paving the way for someone else to come behind. There were only 9 students of African ancestry in the class of '89. So my class doubled that class. I was actually very comfortable in a number of groups, and so I did not necessarily always connect with my cultural group. I was a coxswain. I never even knew what a coxswain was.
You might want to elaborate on that for the audience as far as what your responsibilities were.
Right. So I was a coxswain, which meant that I was like the guide in crew. Crew is you're rowing in a shell. There's either a 4-man or a 4-person or an 8-person shell, a little boat, and there are kayak, if you want to say kayak. And then there's a little person, has to be a little person sitting in the front who actually is, giving the calls of where to go, how much to, what strength and what direction to go to, trying new things. And this is like a part of like coming out of your shell, trying new things, seeing what other people live that you may not necessarily have been exposed to was a wonderful part of my college experience, which helped to propel me to what I do now. I call myself a wellness advocate. So an educator and a wellness advocate. I always wanted to help my mom. And so I wanted to do something in wellness. And I was always raised to teach someone else that which I knew. So here we go. A couple of decades later, I've done a lot of work in education. I've sat on many sides of the education table. All of that to say, what am I doing with it now? So I'm still in education, and I'm also returned to a wellness platform. So although I didn't, do the official medical school piece, I found myself wanting to take better care of myself, decided to take my spiritual level, my religious practice, and go deeper with it. I'm a Baptist. We take Lent very seriously. And so I decided one year to take my Lenten practice to a deeper level. So I went from being a meat eater or a carnivore to literally taking everything away and seeing what I could do. And so that was no dairy, no flesh at all, not even fish. And I did that for 40 days. I literally lost the taste for animal products. I slept for less time and had more energy. When I tried to test putting some of those things back into my body, within 24 hours, I started to have really, really unfavorable responses.
You do look great. I mean, you really do look great. I mean, I don't think you've aged much since college.
We focus on being religious and empowering our spirit. But as I say to people in my community, you can't spend all this time trying to heal and improve your spirit and you're in a jacked up body.
Mm-hmm.
God gives you a body that is good, that he created good at the beginning of time for you to live in and take care of. One of the businesses that I designed is LearnToGrowU. And LearnToGrowU is actually an acronym for, so it's Learn, I love my name. And so Learn is Learn, and it stands for Larrier's Education and Resource Network, right? And the motto is, I plant seeds to help you grow. That has transformed into a marketing and like visibility strategy business that also entails education. So I work with businesses, I work in the field of education, but I do things that are outside of the regular teaching moment. Part of that was a blog that I started, and the name of the blog was called Seeds. And again, remember, LearnToGrowU was I plant seeds to help you grow. Seeds then became that acronym that stood for spiritual education for everyday survival. You're looking at all of this stuff that's going on in society and in the world, and you're like, man, what gives? Like, what do we need to do to sort of improve people's condition, to improve our own self within the community that we live in? Seeds of Imani is now a business in and of itself, because in the journey of looking at the self, looking at how the body reacts, it's all about reacting to what goes on around us. So moving to now, Seeds of Imani has grown into, we discuss food consumption. We discuss, the impact of like water on the world. We discuss, we take challenges and what some people may call detoxes. There's so many things that have occurred as a result of me being okay with stepping outside of the box. And so even though I was raised right in Brooklyn, I'm the person that says, hey, there are some other things out there. I'd like to explore them.
When I was in college, I think God was kind of knocking on my door. I mean, I ended up majoring in religion and English.
I remember.
Whether I was aware of it or not, God was doing a work in me. And he was preparing me for kind of where I am right now. Not that this is the last stop on the road, but even back in college, the conversations we had where we kind of tussled a little bit, I was doing my due diligence. I was challenging you, but I'm the type of person, I'm not going to sign on to something until I vetted it. And if I think the thing I'm trying to sign on to, if I think it's not justified, or if the people that are promoting it are not real, if they're hypocritical, I'm not going to sign on to it. It's been a very long journey for me, and it's been wonderful. It's what's blessed me. It's what led me to this day. And you definitely played a role in that journey. So I want you to know that.
I love you dearly, Todd. I love you dearly. Up until the time that I met you, all the people who I were around were predominantly of the same background. So when you were like wrestling with things, and I tried to stay firm in my beliefs, there were certain times that you asked questions, and I was like, Lord, can you just work with him? Because I'm tired. Like, I don't know what to do. But then you were also a religion major. I literally thought that if I became a religious studies major, I was like denouncing my own Christianity. By the time that we had those dialogues, I was like, is it okay for me to participate in the conversation without losing my religion?
But I like that you brought this up about the religion, because even though I'm a religious person, I'm a spiritual person, I'm a firm believer in separation of church and state for the reasons you just mentioned. I think that there is a tendency with certain zealots to impose their way of thinking and their way of doing things. And I'm not for that. I think that when you have a separation of church and state, it actually reinforces religion and reinforces spirituality, because you actually have to work to get it. If you read the Bible this way, and I'm sure you have, you're well versed in it, you need to chase after God. That's when it's real. I had to chase after God. I always go back to my ex-girlfriend's grandmother. You met her, by the way, in Atlanta years ago. her grandmother asked me why I was feeling down, but I went to her and said, how do you do this? How do you handle all the stresses that are in your life? And she looked at me and she said one word, and she said, Jesus. And I said, okay, because at that time I was a firm, committed Jew. And I said, what do I do with that? Because I'm Jewish. And she said, do you pray? And I said, honestly, I don't really know how. In modern Judaism, we don't advocate a personal relationship with God. We really don't. Not the way Christians do. And so she said, just start talking to him, and just not only when things are bad and not once every so often, but be his friend. Let him be with you. And that got me started on my whole journey. And so I believe that because I grew up and was raised Jewish, and I found my way into the Christian world, and I'm not saying they're right and everyone else is wrong, but I'm just saying that for me, I went after it. It did not come after me, because as you said, Doriel, and you said it very eloquently, you realized at a young age that you needed to step outside that box, and you were very curious about people. That's what I always loved about you. You were friends with everybody on campus. And, every time you saw me, it wasn't just, hey. Every time she saw me, folks, she ran to me, jumped in my arms, because she's like this big, jumped in my arms and gave me the biggest hug. And that's Doriel. That's how I always will remember her. Do you have, if you think for a second, is there anything that you would like to add that maybe we didn't touch on that you want to bless the viewers with?
When someone says that you can't, let that be the boulder that's pushing you against the wall. When you feel that you have no breath left, call on that spirit that lies within to help you get up, push back, and not just push back, but bowl them over.
Love you. Love having you on the show. It was great. I knew it would be. To the viewers, this is Todd Rheingold, the hopeful aspirant. Let's all aspire to reach higher and stay inspired. God bless.